Thank you. Thank you, Administrator.
I misspoke if I said anything other than North Dakota. But.
That's fine. Thank you for being here today. And I want to ask some questions about the hydraulic fracturing study, but before I do that, I want to follow up on Mr. Massey's invitation for you to go to Kentucky and hold a listening session on your way to North Dakota to hold a listening session on the new source performance standards, and would like to submit my letter of invitation to you of October 18th into the record, if I could, Mr. Chairman. And it just seems like in the spirit of transparency that having these 11 listening sessions in the cities where you granted have regional offices is okay as far as it goes, but what a wonderful opportunity it would be to add some more listening sessions. And so I would really love to have you commit to considering these other places, including Bismarck, North Dakota.
I appreciate that. And I just want to tell you that that's not the extent of what we're doing. Those are the major listening sessions, but the regional offices and our administrators are really branching out to the individual states.
And I understand that, but I also understand that in a place like North Dakota where there are 17,000 jobs at stake, $3.5 billion toward our economy is at stake, and where there are a whole bunch of really wonderful, smart experts and scientists who work in this every single day could provide lots of good information to the EPA, that a better method might be to hold a listening session there in public view for everybody to participate. So I would appreciate, in fact, I would love it if you just commit. We'll work out the details later as to what time and what cities and all of that. But I also want to get into the hydraulic fracturing study that you're engaged in, because I have some concerns about it, especially the study design and some of the goals of the study, because as we've discussed in this committee previously with other witnesses, this idea of the EPA searching for what is possible without attention to what is probable is problematic I think from a real scientific standpoint, because one of the primary goals of the study, stated primary goals of the study, is to answer questions like, what are the possible impacts of hydraulic fracturing fluid surface spills on or near well pads on drinking water resources, end quote. And it appears, in fact, that the EPA's Independent Science Advisory Board shares this concern as well. One SAB expert commented, quote, there is no quantitative risk assessment included in EPA's research effort. Thus, the reader has no sense of how risky any operation may be in ultimately impacting drinking water. This is also a significant limitation of the work, end quote. Is the mere possibility of an event occurring sufficient to justify regulatory action in your mind?
I actually think that this is purely a scientific research project, so we understand the potential implications. It is not a regulatory decision.
Sure, but again, the possible versus probable is, what is the standard then of probability before you continue with using more resources, given the fact that hydraulic fracturing is not exactly a new technology?
No,
I mean, it's been around for over half a century.
Yeah.
So, I mean, is there a line, and you certainly can understand why industry and states might be concerned that we go down this path with the mere possibility as a standard, and the uncertainty that creates in the investment community as we try to become more energy secure in this country?
My understanding is that this is a number of research projects that are looking at the potential for impact on water supplies. It is the first step.
I understand.
In looking at this in a more comprehensive way, so we can be sure we're doing things safe and responsible.
Well, I agree that this is one, and is, I guess, part of something more comprehensive, because your Office of Science Policy Director, Dr. Huckman, in May of last year, stated that the agency is doing, quote, a pretty comprehensive look at all the statutes to determine where holes may allow for additional federal oversight, unquote. So is this study part of that comprehensive look for holes in opportunities to regulate further?
My understanding is, and we can certainly follow up, is that this is purely a research project. It is not, at this point, talking about what laws we might utilize or what regulations we might want to do.
Well, have you found any holes, or do you know of any regulatory holes that might present an opportunity for further regulation by the EPA? Because You know, that standard's rather frightening in North Dakota.
We are purely looking at whether or not there are implications that we need to understand from hydraulic fracturing, both in this case on water quality. That is it.
All right, thank you. And my time has expired, Mr. Chairman.